Welcome to What the Biz, where we talk about building successful businesses, balancing life, and all the WTB in between. With your hosts, me, Richard Pyatt.
I'm Brigitte Vector.
And I'm Dan Prochko.
Well, thank you for clicking the play button and rejoining us for another WTB, What the Biz. Richard here, Dan and Brigitte, all here. And it's kind of interesting because we're going to talk about working virtually, remote workers today. And we were just chatting before we started the program that Dan and Brigitte are just getting over ailments. And I guess that's one good thing about remote work, right? You don't have to share those germs.
That is a positive.
Oh, wow. See, there it is. There's the cough. Went on vacation, came back, and wham, cold hit me like a day later, which is always great because when you come back from vacation, it's like you're in catch-up mode already, at least a little bit, it's just not feeling good. That's all.
But same. Well, the last episode, I was actually recording remotely because we were working remotely for 2 weeks in South Carolina. And the day we came back, it was actually a 40-degree difference between there and Michigan. And I am confident that like internal shock of cold is what created this nice little sickness I'm battling. But it's okay.
Shocked your immune system.
That's funny. You think. Yeah, exactly. You'd think us being from Michigan would be used to it, but no, it's come on back and wham.
Yeah. No, it really isn't.
When my friends say you're allergic to Michigan, you should take that as your sign. And
well, it's interesting you say all this and you're going through it because I was at my chiropractor the other day and it was, early fall. And he said, okay, well, do your exercises, eat well, because here comes all the junk that everybody's going to catch. It's just that time of year. And you two are there to prove it.
Yeah.
We're living, breathing examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I had to miss a cool performance show I wanted to go to. I had to miss that because I was all sick. I didn't want to be a super spreader. So I ate it and stayed home all bored, watching the thousands of hours of Netflix I have access to. It's horrible life.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But, I guess that's part of what we've learned over the last 3 years or something is, we don't necessarily have to go out if we don't feel well. And sometimes that wasn't always the case, right? We felt like we had to be working or wherever.
Very true. I think even the last few years is timely with the episode we're going to record today is, remote work has become so much more commonplace now. It has also drawn attention to some of the issues with remote workers, but the fact that it's so much more common and, that flexibility and, hey, I don't feel good, I'm going to go take a nap because I can and then come back to work is, I don't know, I think it improves some productivity on that side.
You think so, Dan?
I mean, our whole team. Oh, I do. My whole team is remote. So, we don't have an office. Nobody comes together. We don't even have set working hours. It's really all based on just output, like results. Like, what you have to complete. This is what you're, evaluated on. And so, everybody's an adult and kind of gets their stuff done. So, it's worked out for us kind of in that way. That was like real. I glossed over the whole thing right there. But, I can go into more depth in a bit. But love remote work. It's been great. It's been great for us.
Yeah.
Well, I had what happened to me that prompted me to start my business was actually the remote work where I was in a position where I was traveling a lot, and, working in an office, certainly when I wasn't traveling and when everything shut down, we were remote based and I realized I kind of like this.
Yeah. I've got a funny story similar to that. In a past life, in another job over a decade ago, I was doing e-commerce marketing, email marketing for e-commerce. And there were a couple of days, one of these winter days, like right now, or like pre-winter, I should say. We're not winter yet, fall. One of these fall days, it's cold. I got sick, and bed fever. I worked from home for like 3 days. And I did pretty much 2 weeks worth of work in those 3 days at home than when I'm at the office. So much so that even, my boss at the time, or manager, whatever you want to call him, pointed that out. Like, oh my God, you got so much done while you were out, like, thanks for not bringing the sickness here, but like, that's awesome. So I took that as like hey, maybe I should ask, can I work from home like one day a week? Like just one a week,
Mhm.
and used all of that as evidence. Like, hey, I didn't have the distractions. I was able to just focus in and, just talking like one day a week. It could be a Monday. It could be a Wednesday. Like it doesn't have to be Friday. I'm not looking to play hooky. It's like, I just need that one day. I get a lot done. And it was no was the answer. And it was always like, okay, well, let's talk about why. And the answer I got in return, it seems to make sense, but it doesn't in the end. The answer is, well, if I do it for you, I have to do it for others. And I'm like,
Sure.
okay. Like I see that. I see the worry because there may be people on the team that can't handle that. But you don't have to treat everyone equally, like that's the whole point of this is like, have others earned it? Can we test vet it? And I was like, okay, that's fine. Why don't you just offer it to everybody? And like, well, we can't do that because then we don't know what's getting done. I'm like, yeah, you do. I just proved that over the last 3 days. You know exactly what's getting done. You even commented how much was getting done, which was amazing. And, it just became this whole circular conversation then. Well, I don't know that anybody could do that. That was a one-off day, and I don't know that it'd be the same every week and everything. And it's just like, okay, thanks. The respect, and the treating people like an adult, it just wasn't there. Funny thing is that person, I believe, has left that company, and that company now does have 4 or 3 day work weeks, honestly, or flex time and whatnot, which is really funny. Because I know some people that were there well after I left, ended up with them. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Things have changed a lot, though, just overall. The purview on this, as Bridget pointed out, over the last few years, it is a different outlook, isn't it?
Absolutely. And honestly, it comes with its own set of challenges. I mean, even in the story that Dan was just talking about, not everybody thrives in a remote working environment. There are
Correct.
some people that need that office, like in-person touch and camaraderie. And is that the word?
Camaraderie, yeah, camaraderie, yeah. You use it, yeah. You got it.
I'm a numbers girl, not a words girl. So, speaking podcast is hard sometimes. Let me put that in an equation. Anyway, so just having like the correct systems to track, like you were saying, you can absolutely see what people are getting done if you have the right things in place. It can get out of hand if you don't, for sure, but I don't know. I think the opportunity in general across, workplaces to offer that flexibility to employees, if it only can be one day a week, even, is a huge added benefit, really.
So
Yeah.
I was squirming in
There are
my
definitely-
chair. I was squirming in my chair while Dan was talking because I wanted to say, yeah. So in my previous life, where I mentioned I was not a remote worker until we had to be, that whole situation evolved later into one exactly like you described. And so I would suspect that this was a conversation in a lot of management offices about how to handle this. But at the core of a reticence to continue being remote was this notion that I don't know if people are working. And
which is crazy.
Are they getting their stuff done? End of story. It just seemed like a simple question.
I feel like a lot of it's generational, though. I mean, it is really hard for the generations that are very used to being in office. And even if you can see people in office not working, the fact they're even existing still in the chair is like that feel good where it's like hard for, and I hate to call it generational, but it is. Some like they have a hard time seeing that people can still be productive by working at home. And I don't know, my previous life, I was very blessed that my role had that flexibility from the get-go. But I also knew by having that flexibility, we started having kids as, we started our family, and I recognized as I was looking to start this business that that's something I wanted to provide to others as well, like the ability to work remotely. And honestly, accounting world gets a bad rap because most people think of accountants and CPAs and tax preparers that we work 80, 90, like huge long weeks, right? And often during tax season we do, and I don't think we have to. So being able to have an accounting firm that our employees have the remote flexibility, we can work with our clients remotely, and even having our clients be open to that remote now because of the last few years that we had, has really changed, from my aspect, the accounting world. And I think other industries are experiencing the same changes.
Yeah, I can confirm your team does a great job being remote because, one, we work with you, but even through tax season, I mean, we've been able to get our taxes done early every year. And so, it's definitely a testament to what you have going on. That's number one. Number two, to all of our points so far, it's just funny how, one, it takes a pandemic to show the value or that it can even happen. Like, that's just crazy. But then there are those people, like you were saying, Bridget, this mindset of like, you just had the evidence of like 2 years of people forced to work remote, or a year and a half, but that gets wiped away just because there's this option that we can come back to an office. And it's just like, it's almost like mental gymnastics has to happen to square those things. There's all this evidence that it was just working. The company's profitable, otherwise people would be fired or something, and yet they're still like, we don't know if they're working. Your bottom line says it right off the bat. Like, what are we worried about here? There's other ways to get at it.
But how many of those people with those feelings are ingrained enough to see those bottom lines and realize,
right?
There's a lot that goes behind it, which is super important when you're looking to set up a remote team, for sure.
Yeah. I think, and you touched on a lot of that, having the key pieces that they're responsible for, having those touch points throughout the week and the quarter or year, et cetera, that bring people together, that show it happening. But you got to be a person that can trust that when somebody says yes, like in a spreadsheet or somewhere, this is done, that it's actually done.
Quality control checks.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
So try this on. If a manager or company is concerned about remote work such that they are not so excited about implementing it or continuing it, does that automatically signal that there's other problems, culture problems, performance problems, wrong people in the wrong seats, whatever that is all about?
I mean, to me, those concerns stem from somewhere. Whether it's, whoever's making that decision at top level doesn't fully understand what's happening down in the weeds. That could be part of it. Concerns because it's new. If they've never done it before, not knowing how to manage that could be a scary thing. I think us as humans like to stay in our comfort zones and what we see as normal or what we're used to. So to kind of push into these new worlds, I think has been met with some resistance, just because not knowing how to, or how do I manage that scenario.
I think some bit of what I've experienced over the years is something around fairness, that it's unfair because some people have to be at the office. So how can we offer it to others? And it's just, I don't know, addressing that culturally, it stems from values and what you want to offer and what your team not demands, but like what are the desires of what's going on and how do you want to grow? I mean, because even that can be overcome. Everybody understands manufacturing has to be on a manufacturing floor. You can't do that from home, at least so far. Who knows, maybe in the future there'll be robot arms we can control from home, but at that point they're probably automated. But there's something there around the fairness of like, it's just unfair to allow some people to work from home and others not, so we're just not going to offer board. I think that's another piece, but again, it just stems from values. So,
well, think about that. Like the scenario you described, Dan, that you worked at home and all of a sudden you were more productive, but that wasn't enough to push your boss over the edge on that.
Yeah.
It's very possible he could be sitting there thinking, okay, so Dan does this and he's productive, but person X, who's on a performance improvement plan, I don't trust them to work from home. So all of this is going through their minds that if they do it for you, they got to do it for everybody, including an underperforming employee who might not be best for
Yeah.
such a situation.
Sure. And I'd push back on that person, it was a she back then. But I would push back, and I tried to even then. It was just like, you don't have to treat everybody equally. Some people, well, what I mean to say is not everybody has to have the exact same benefit, but they can earn it is the piece. You have the same program for everyone, but there are ways to unlock it, to earn things. And thus, you do prove that value, that you are worthy of this perk, because you've met the requirement that everyone has to meet. So even though there is someone on a, let's just say, a improvement track, as long as they do that improvement track, that should be wiped clean. That's the point of improvement tracks. Once you get to the end of it and all parties agree we're good, it's not here anymore. Like, you can't keep punishing someone for that. They've done their bit. We're going forward. So it's from there, then what do they have to do to unlock that piece? And yeah, maybe everyone's able to unlock it. And is that such a bad thing? Because if everybody's meeting that same benchmark that your organization needs, you're hitting what you need to hit to stay profitable, to grow, and to provide for the team those things they need.
So,
and kind of a separate aspect to that is when you are putting somebody into a remote environment and they aren't able to meet those benchmarks, that should also make you wonder how well they're doing in the office.
Like,
there's
Very
two
good
aspects to that too. And somebody may not be on an improvement plan that should be. So, managing remote people is just as difficult as managing in person. It's just swapping where they're sitting. But that unlocks a whole different animal when you have somebody on your team that probably shouldn't be on your team any longer. That's a whole different podcast episode.
Yeah, totally. And I don't think we should get too bogged down in the whole, like, when to do it, when not to do it. I think it's a conversation internally with the leadership that's, if a team is asking for it, to really, open your mind a little bit to look at what does that program look like? What would we need in place for that to work? And how do people qualify for it? Because I definitely think it's possible for many, many positions. We don't need people sitting in an office in a chair all day long, because so many benefits on a work-life balance level that I've been able to have with all of my past remote work. And I think, Brigitte, you were signaling to some of this is like, okay, I need an oil change, sorry, if I go at like 5, 6 o'clock, everyone's going 5, 6 o'clock and that place closes at 6, I only have like a 1 hour gap to get it done. Otherwise, then I got to eat my weekends up, which then I got tons of family things going on, family running around. What if I need a doctor's appointment? There's only so many of those happening, and they got to happen in the middle of the day. So I got to miss work anyway. But with having this remote day, it could happen on that day, and I'm still just as productive because I know I got that flex time where I can use it in a certain way. So it's been real beneficial that I've seen from my team, in that way specifically, where they can go to those parent-teacher conferences in the middle of the day, or do this orientation, or, especially with kids in preschool, first grade that maybe still have half days or kindergarten, how that works, be able to go pick them up, drop them off, do those parent things that they love doing. So it's been real awesome to have this kind of setup where my team feels they're able to do the things they want to do and love to do.
So you both, when you advertised your available positions, advertised them as remote only, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you got bowled over with applicants?
Yeah.
Boy, I wish.
we put ours on Indeed, and it was insane, the amount of applications coming through. I think the hard part, this falls into hiring too, is the qualifications that just aren't there.
Uh-huh.
I think remote work is incredibly appealing to a lot of people these days. And being able to offer that is really nice, but you've got to find the right people that can handle it. And I think having the perk of remote work gives you a greater opportunity to be able to pull in those A players that we all want on our teams. Because ultimately that's what that they're looking for out there. They're looking for that flexible schedule that meets what their family needs, where they can also be a stellar employee for somebody. But it also brings, I would say, a handful of not so great candidates with it as well, because they're just looking for that
Oh, isn't that true? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah. I mean,
That easy button job.
no, I know exactly. Remote. This is going to be simple, but it's really not. Our team hits the ground running. There's some positions where we get tons of applicants, like Bridget, but others we put up where we haven't gotten many. And that could be more our fault on where we're posting it and how we're promoting it. But those where we get a lot, oh man, they're from everywhere. I mean, international, across the country, which is awesome because that opens up a whole other pool of applicants that if you were really looking for someone locally, you're pulling from let's just say like a 30-40 mile radius, to be honest. I mean, depending where you're at least by us, you're really only pulling from a 30-40 mile radius. People aren't willing to drive an hour,
Right.
to get to work, unlike maybe Chicago or a large market where that's part of daily life is a potential, hour commute via mass transit and whatever else. So, if you think about that pool, it's like how many real qualified people that we need that are smarter than me, because that's why I want to hire people smarter than me. How many of those exist in this pool right here? Not that I'm so egotistical that there aren't any, there definitely are, but it's when you open it up to remote, you can find a lot of amazing applicants that can really drive your organization forward.
Yeah, the talent pool. That's huge, like you were saying. Yeah.
Definitely a benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So let me ask you both this before we go. Have there been any challenges that you've recognized working remotely that have worked against your productivity or your overall goals?
Yeah, I'll jump in and start. We'll have you end up and Bridget. So yes, they all stem from culture. For me, it's how do we get them aligned with where we're actually going, the business goal, all of it? Because when you don't have that day-to-day touch point, that's difficult. It's not impossible. It's just more difficult. That's number one. Number two are like little things like productivity, keeping focus. Like we can tell because we've got a project manager where we see things, day to day, how much they're getting done, where they're spending time, how much time, and seeing some things get bloated, etc. But at the same time, they have to learn. They're adults, so it's like knowing that line between micromanaging and letting them evolve and align with the culture and become what we need them to become. It's a balancing act, and I'm not saying I'm good at it. It's just a balancing act that we are dealing with right now. But we're getting it all done, so it's still happening. Like we're still growing. So it's a big part of our success. I wouldn't have it any other way right now. Yeah. How about you, Bridget?
I agree. So I mean, I knew when I started this business, I was not aiming to have an office location, so that I already knew I would have to figure out the remote work piece. So I think going into it, having put systems in place, I mean, we use Slack for team communication. We use Asana to do all of our task management. So I can run reports and see, okay, how much time are they taking on these certain things? And are their tasks getting completed? And are they being completed to quality? As far as struggles, training is much harder in a remote world. That has definitely proven to be more challenging than I even expected. Because it's way easier to sit next to somebody and go through things and have papers in front of you and, connect on, so that training has been hard. And that also moves into the culture piece, like Dan was talking about. It is much easier to build a culture when you're together in an office environment than remote. So you have to be intentional with more team meetings. And not just team meetings about work, but actually getting to know each other.
Yeah.
We do like Friday coffee chats. So culture is a huge part of it as well. And tackling the fact that we're all rowing the boat in the same direction is another piece. We actually developed a 1-page strategic plan, as we call it. And I sound like a broken record on meetings, but it's what keeps bringing the team back to focus. Because I think focus is easily maybe lost in the remote environment. And of course, they have their distractions around them. So reminding them how important time blocking is and focusing on one thing at a time. It has its challenges, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, honestly.
That's so exciting to hear. We just shared our 1-year plan with the whole team. We hadn't done it till just now. Oh, I think what we're talking about culture in an upcoming episode, so I can't wait to go through this some more and hear from you, Brigitte, how it's impacted your team and other stuff over the weeks. But that's awesome. Congrats. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's
Richard,
right.
how's it going with you have a remote worker. Your contractor is remote. So
Well,
you're dipping your toes in it. Have you experienced any struggles?
Very, very little bit. And in fact, that person for me is project based. So, next week, could you do this or that? Sure. The following week, there might not be anything. But I do talk with her pretty regularly, check in with her, and I did have an opportunity to go to a local minor league baseball team event, and I invited her, and she brought her significant other, and we had a nice talk. So that has led me to believe that is a good thing to do. Now, she happens to be here in the same town, so that makes it easier. But I think that's really the same thing you were saying, Brigitte, that you have team building and opportunities to talk remotely as well. So I suppose it's a similar thing. So I'm not anywhere near where the two of you are with that, but I asked you that because I'm trying to absorb that for when I am, and so I don't know that you surprised me a whole lot with what you said, but it resonates and it makes a lot of sense. And so both of you alluded to this, and that will be the next discussion, is building a company culture. And that will be our next discussion on What the Biz. And we'd like to know, by the way, how did you implement remote work? Or maybe you lived through it, or maybe you took it away. I've seen some articles recently about, I don't know, I think they called it a revolt. I don't think it really was, but, a pushback from a big company CEO who said, everybody come back to the office. And they said, no. So it was pretty interesting to hear about that. Tell us about that from your perspective, social media, or how about this? Dan put this really cool thing on the What the Biz website, whatthebiz.com, where it's a little red button at the bottom of the page. It says send a voicemail. So you can record a message to us. And yes, we might share it on the program, but it will be interesting to hear how it works or doesn't work for you. Remote work. What the Biz, whatthebiz.com. Follow us too on social media and check in and also let us know that you're following us so that you're connected when these new episodes come about. Dan, Brigitte, and Richard back with another episode soon. Thanks for being with us.